we'll kick off from here. So first of all, welcome to episode 3 of interviewing sailors. Today we've got Sophie Jackson. Sorry, Sophie, this seems so formal. Sophie is currently up for Victorian Female Sailor of the Year. I think I got that right. She's the current world champion of the Aero class. She's been, I don't know how many different female awards that you've won in opti sailing, and also in the 420s you've been on the podium. I don't have enough fingers in my hands to count it. So and an extra to that, Sophie has been a coach working with oppies, 420s, learned to sail all the way up. Dare I say it, she lives, breathes and does everything for sailing. And thank you very much for giving you or giving us your time today. I think it's going to be very good. So this is Sophie. I think most of you probably already know her. Sophie, you might kick off the first just kind of question of where did it all start? So oppies, it's what we've done with the other guys, and it seems like a good question to start with. How did it start off for you?
Well, I guess I was kind of lucky in a way that I was brought up in a sailing family. So before I sailed opties, I was already on boats. Dad had an Etchell and sailing on keel boats and stuff as a little kid, not really doing much, but still introduced to sailing at a young age. And then, like most people, I went through the TACAS programs and then into the Mornington Yacht Club Green Fleet, and just really enjoyed kind of making friends and just getting out on the water. And my first regatta was a Lidget trophy at Davies Bay.
Awesome. Am I right to say that you might have been one of the first tackers? Now, I didn't think about it, but I think tackers was just starting up when you guys were around.
Yeah, I wasn't the very first lot, but when I went through, I think there was only a tackers one, so there wasn't all the levels. So yeah, it was right at the start.
So you're right at the grassroots. I'm just trying to make you feel old. That's all I'm trying to do. You know, just have a bit of fun. And the Lidget Trophy, how good was that when it was around? It was just the perfect balance of coaching, a little bit of regatta experience, but main overall philosophy was just fun. So that's pretty cool. And I know that there was an intermediate fleet when you were around, but do you remember the point where you went from being fun friends? Was it mainly based about hanging out with friends at that age? So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but was it about that?
Yeah, so my first kind of, I guess, bigger regatta, I did the Green Fleet Nationals and went to Adelaide when I was 10, and that was kind of where I was like, oh, I really like kind of racing and a bit of competition, but at the same time just really enjoyed, again, like the days in Green Fleet are nice and short. There was a bit of racing and then lots of time with your friends, which was kind of the best bit for me. And then probably the year after that, kind of decided that I wanted to take sailing a bit more seriously, and someone asked, oh, like, why are you sailing? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And kind of decided that I wanted to be an Olympian. And so ever since, I guess I was 11, that's kind of driven me to keep sailing. But when I first kind of got into the open fleet, because as Dave said, there was no intermediate fleet, so it was a pretty big jump. So I spent quite a while just kicking around at the back of the open fleet. And yeah, it took a while to actually start progressing, and after a few years, eventually made my first big opti squad. And that was about the time that Dave came to Australia, so I was quite lucky. We had Dave as a state coach.
Debatable there, I reckon, but we'll see how we go. And did you, when you did transition from, say, call it the green to you were thrown in the deep end, I just remember you being one of the most determined kids. Was it always that goal of the Olympics that kept you driving on?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, you have shorter term goals as well. And so for a few years, definitely the goal was to make that big opti squad. And then once I was in there, my goal was always to make the Australian opti team, but I never quite made it.
Well, we might touch on that just later on. That was a tough pill to swallow. Yeah, that was as a coach, it was one of those moments where you're speechless, and I think we both knew that it was just a tough spot. So what we're talking about is at the Mornington Nationals, I think there was was it 343 competitors? And the way that they split up the fleets, they split it up, the top 50 made gold fleet. And probably if it was another way designed, it probably should have been the top 60 or the top something else that would have been the same as the world's. And in that moment, at that nationals, there was, I think it was 25 internationals, and Sophie was placed 51st. Am I right in saying that, or somewhere close to that? So
Yeah, I missed the cutoff on the gold fleet on account back.
On account back, and I think it was pretty much if you made it into the gold fleet, because there were so many internationals, the way that AOS worked the last time, it was the top 25 made the team, and that was obviously a goal that we had set. And we might actually just rewind a little bit back from that nationals. What happened maybe 5 months prior to then? You had a little accident on the ski slopes.
Yeah, so when I was 13, I had a pretty major skiing accident. I fractured 2 vertebrae in my spine, and had to spend 3 months 24/7 in a spinal brace. So I had to sleep in it, couldn't get it wet, so I couldn't shower. So it was pretty serious injury. Obviously I couldn't sail. So that was really tough. And yeah, that was the winter before my last Opti Nationals, which were at my home club at Mornington. So it was pretty disappointing to be off the water for so long. But yeah, I guess I learned a lot of lessons through that time, and was definitely grateful for my sailing. And so as soon as I was allowed to start getting back into things, I made sure that I did all my physio exercises, more than they told me to, and that I could get back in the water as quick as I could. But I guess, yeah, that was hard coming into that last nationals, because I'd had a lot less training than everyone else, probably wasn't as physically strong and those kinds of things as other people as well. Because
I reckon, and I hope that you take this in a compliment type of way, but when it comes to your strengths, you are probably one of the most dedicated workers that I've had the pleasure of working with, where it mightn't have naturally have come as easy as it does with other people, but your determination is what gets you where you are, I think, today. And for you not to have that lead train up time up to the nationals, even the patience and the dedication that you showed at that level, at that age, you were 13. And I remember you were going out with your dad. We were on the phone a bit, and it was 30 minutes, then it was 40 minutes, then it was 50-minute sessions. And I think it was only, maybe 4 weeks, a month before the actual event, maybe a month and a half, that you're actually able to get out in the water, even 15, 20 minutes at a time, and work your way up. And to get you up to that level it was a real inspiration. I remember at that nationals as well, Hugo Llewellyn had his, unfortunately had to get a medical operation as well, which put him out of the nationals. So our squad was an unlucky Irish squad, I'd say at that point. There wasn't a lot going wrong, but we all bounced back, and we did quite well still. So, and do you think, again, I'm hoping you take this the right way, but compared to where you are now, where you're the Victorian Female Sailor of the Year, you're world champion, if we were to put that to your Oppie career, even though you did quite well, not taking away from that, do you think that even though you weren't at the very top of the fleet in the politest sense, did you take so much from Oppies that transferred to other boats because you were working hard, or did you learn it more after Oppies? Sorry, that's a bit of a
yeah, well, obviously Opties was a really good base to step up into other boats, and getting into race, obviously in pretty big fleets in Opties, I think is definitely an advantage. But at the same time, not having that kind of intermediate fleet and never really getting to the top of the open fleet, I think meant that when I went into the bigger boats, it took me a while to kind of learn how to lead and how to start winning races. So in some ways it was good, but in other ways, like I think if you guys are lucky to have that intermediate fleet and learning to win instead of kind of, I never really got that opportunity. There's so many different skills in learning how to lead races and that kind of thing, which took me a bit longer to learn as I progressed through 420s.
Yeah. And it's ironic as well, because I think intermediate fleet was invented at those nationals, at the Mornington Nationals, and that's the nationals that you didn't get a chance. Well, obviously you were well past intermediate fleet at that stage. I remember actually going away on a few trips with you in Oppies as well. So we did like the North Islands. We went in a Tassie for a few trips. What were they like? Do you remember those memories?
Yeah, I think probably those kind of years in the big Opti team and beginning to see what it's like to be part of a squad and getting to travel was definitely like some of my fondest moments, and probably what really hooked me into wanting to progress to higher squads and doing more travel and that kind of thing. I think it was kind of funny, those experiences as well, because I was the only girl in the Vic Opti team, so I was traveling around with like 12 other boys, so it was quite daunting, I guess, at that age. But yeah, definitely learned a lot and a lot of good memories.
In saying that, and I don't think it's anything to do with the fact that you're a female, when it came to setting the professional status or the professional standard, you were, and the boys will kill me for saying it, but you were definitely the leader. So whenever it came time to, if I said focus, and you guys wouldn't be laughing at when I said 360, because I think that still makes people laugh. At that time I had a stronger accent. If I said, guys, you need to focus, you were definitely the person who had the notebook, we're taking it down. I even remember at that age, I think you were booking some of the accommodation, because Jacko, like you were incredibly mature for that age, and it's a real credit to you for that. Those are great trips, though. I really, yeah, had a lot of fond memories of them. With your goal of being an Olympian, did you have any role models that you aspired, that you looked up to?
I think in terms of that, like Olympic ambition, Dad has always been one of my main role models, and he didn't quite make the Olympics, but was selected as the top boat to go to one of the Olympics in the 470 class.
Yeah.
And Australia didn't send anyone that year, but I think that's definitely been a motivator, and hearing his stories of going on the elite pathway and representing Australia at the highest levels was definitely motivating. And I think also John Bertrand, who I don't know if you young guys would know John, but skipper of Australia 2, the first time another country, let alone Australia, had beat America in the America's Cup ever in over 100 years that it had been run. And I have John's autobiography, which I would definitely recommend reading. And I read that when I was quite young and was really inspired by the kind of dedication that you can put into the sport to get the results that you're trying to achieve. And John, like reading his book, had a really all-rounded approach, and at that time he was, I guess, a bit ahead in recognizing all the different elements of being an athlete and part of a team, like sports psychology and that kind of thing, which inspired me.
I couldn't agree more, and I've been lucky enough to have a few little conversations with him, and it's just incredible. So that's pretty cool. And then even better, you've got your dad, who without a doubt is like, I mean, massive, like everyone's dad is a big part of your lives, of everyone's lives, but Jacko's passion for your sailing and what he wants, I definitely have had a good chin wag with him. So he's like, it's so good that he's so close to you, is I guess what I'm getting at. And even the type of boats that you guys sailed and the competitiveness that you both share, it's pretty good. I'm sure that there's it's not all perfect the whole time, like everything, but it's great that you can share that passion. I think it's awesome that you can do with your parents. after Oppies, you moved to a 420, right? That was the next boat.
Yeah.
What was the leap like? Do you remember it?
Yeah, I think the jump from an Opti to a 420 is a pretty big one, because you go from a single sail and this tiny little boat to a much bigger boat, 3 sails, a trapeze, you're sailing with another person. And I guess 420s are quite complicated in that they have proper rig and control. There's a lot of things you can learn about rigs and sail shapes. So it was a pretty big step. I remember my first weekend training camp, and Craig Ferris, the New South Wales state coach, had come down, and he's talking about pre-bend and chocks and sail shape and draft, and I'm going, I don't know what's going on.
Surely I went through all that stuff in Oppies, no?
So yeah, it's a pretty big step going into the 420, and yeah, as I said, look, learned a lot, and that's kind of where I guess the big learnings that I've taken through all the way started to come into it. So yeah, things, sail shape and learning how to control the rig, and depowering, like going from the Opti, which is kind of a slow displacement boat, into the 420 where you get planing. A lot of different kind of techniques in learning how to sail and control the boat. And I think the other big thing was learning to sail.
Oh. Sorry, Sophie, you still with us? Sorry.
Got me there? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I froze. I don't know what you missed out, but I was just saying that sailing in a 2-person boat, there's a lot to learn in sailing with a different person, and having to split up the roles and knowing who's going to do what at what time, sharing the decision making and those kinds of things.
Yeah, and when you initially moved in, did you? I think did you start off with Ella, right? Did you start off essentially with 2 beginner crews, or like were you both new to the 420 at the same time? So did that lead to?
So Ella and I jumped out of Optis at the same time.
Yep, and did that lead to a lot of capsizes at the start because you were both new to it, or was it?
Definitely a few capsizes, but I think the 420 is good that it's not too hard to control. It's not like a 29 or that kind of thing. So you can still have fun and not spend all your time in the water.
Yeah.
But we were definitely a bit slow at the start and trailing at the back of the fleet as we started.
But you certainly, I mean, you started off there, but you've worked your way up to being the peaky, like right at the top of the podium for the last few years. Whereabouts was the coolest place you travelled in the 420? Because you've been to a few nice spots, I think.
I think in the 420, my favourite place was Fremantle, which might sound a bit boring, but I love the windy weather in 420 kind of the whole time I sailed it, and Freo in the summer gets big sea breezes, and it's also just like a beautiful place to sail, clear water, and I did my last 420 Worlds there,
Yep.
and got those conditions that I really loved, so I think that was definitely my favourite place.
No, it's actually, yeah, it's an awesome place to sail, especially if you do like and I think you did quite well at that nationals too. You're definitely on the podium, which is which is
6th in the female division at the Worlds there.
I guess that's an okay place. I mean, it's not quite as good as being, world champion in a boat, which is the Aero. That was a single-handed boat. You switched focus. You went to something that was a little bit simpler. What made you make the decision? Was it I've got a world's my backyard. Let's change the focus to something you can control. What made you make that decision?
So when I got out of the 420, I wanted to get into the 470, but I spent quite a long time looking for a crew and still didn't have one middle of last year. And so I was trying to find someone to compete with overseas, but I couldn't find a crew. So Johnny, the VIS head coach, said, there's a Worlds coming to Melbourne. it's a single-handed boat. You can sail by yourself. You don't have to rely on anyone else, and you're going to be able to get some really good international experience. So I was able to still do 1 or 2 days a week training in the 470 with really whoever I could find, and then was still able to get 6 days a week on the water and really be making the most of my time, learning new skills. And again, yeah, it was pretty cool. Well, I quite enjoyed going back into the single-handed class and not having to rely on a crew and organize your time around somebody else.
Yeah. So I might just touch on, like you're saying, you do 6 sessions a week. You're on the water 6 days a week when you're at your peak. With those sessions, how long are they? Are they short, intense, or a bit of variety?
Yeah. So training, if I'm training like by myself or in the 470 with just me and my crew, they're normally kind of like 2-hour sessions. And if we have a coach or a training partner, that I think the longest session is like 4.5 hours, but normally like 3 hours on the water.
And with those sessions, obviously you have a goal in the aero, and like it's like as if you're studying 2 degrees at once, trying to balance everything out right. Did you have a plan leading into that championship? Did you have different areas, or were you just saying, hey, I need to be on the water 6 days a week? Did you have it mapped out what you wanted to work on each session, or even each, say, training block?
Yeah, so obviously getting into the aero, the single-handed class, super different from the 420 and the 470. So, and only having kind of 6 months to try and master the class, I was always focused on a particular skill at a time and trying to work on that. So got to work with Ollie Twiddell as my coach for the last few months leading into that Worlds. And I was actually training with Casey Aminio in the laser radial because the aero and the radial are similar speeds. And because I was kind of still learning the boat, that was really good for me to have something to work towards and eventually catching up to Casey's speed. But yeah, some of the different kind of key skills that I was working on in the last few months were like we'd have blocks on tacking, like starting skills, accelerations, time on distance, and then obviously also a lot of time on speed, which was upwind and downwind. Trying to, a lot of it was kind of my body movement, because in the 420 and the 470, it's a lot more steering and trim involved, whereas the aero, just like you guys in the Opti, is a lot more body involved. And I guess fitness was another key element, getting my hiking legs back for that single-handed stint.
I'd say you loved it. So if you're sailing 6 days a week, for fitness, I know that you do an awful lot of other stuff that you're always doing pull-ups and other things. Was it all home-based? Did you have a set plan for that as well?
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough for the last 2 years I was in the Victorian Institute of Sport. So I had a pretty good support team there. So a few days a week, even though it's a bit of a trek up to Melbourne for me, but I get to use their gym. And so would normally be doing three sessions a week in the gym. So like weights and strength-based kind of things. Mostly things to help my hiking and like arms for main sheet pulls and that kind of stuff. And then also cardio work as well. So leading up to that event with the VIS, normally I'd do like a stationary bike session in the week, a rowing session, and normally a swim as well.
So not too much. You're also training for a triathlon as well, which is pretty good. Also, Sophie's nickname for when I was working with her was Giggles, because there was often a lot of giggles, which was always good. Sorry to bring that up, but it just seemed like the right time. With your straight line speed, and like I know that we could talk about so much when it comes to sailing. What way, just so that we've got like a room full of Oppie kids, what way were you breaking down your focuses? You were saying it's one thing at a time. Was it like your main sheet trim, your sail controls, your body? What were you breaking down? What were you trying to work on each session?
Yeah, so exactly how Dave taught me in the Opti. I'm sure he teaches you guys the same way now, breaking it down into main body and tiller. And so although sometimes I was focusing on one element, I guess at the end of the day, you need to combine all of them at the right way at the right time. So a lot of the time, that was my focus. It was the timing of combining all three things to get the right speed.
So you might say it's multitasking, and girls are way better at multitasking. So I reckon girls are like better sailors. So I'm either hoping boys are going to prove me wrong, or girls are just going to prove it. Either way, I can't lose here. But yeah, I reckon that's what it's about though, which is pretty cool. So then we might skip on to, you're at the Aero Worlds. What was it like? Were you nervous beforehand? Were you pretty focused? Did you have any routines beforehand that you always stick to? What was it like?
Yeah, so I guess it was quite interesting, a new experience, the Aero Worlds, because I literally had no idea where I was going to be in the fleet. I'd done all this training, and obviously in the back of my mind, I was like, I want to be a world champion, but I had no idea. Like, I could have been coming last. I just didn't know what the standard of the fleet was going to be. And so I didn't really have a lot of pressure on myself, and just tried to stick to a good routine and all the processes and make sure that I just gave myself the best opportunity to do well. And I think, again, that single-handed element of the class really allows you to set your own routine and do everything that's right for you. And so, like, you know, every morning I'd make sure that I did a warm-up, I rolled out in the foam roller, and was always every day first out to the race course, first to leave the beach, allowing myself at least an hour to go through a full pre-start routine, collect as much data as I could, make sure I was physically warmed up, and yeah, just trying to give myself the best chance to do well.
So which data were you collecting? Was it like weather forecast, different models, that kind of stuff, the tide, or what was the data you were looking up?
Yeah, so forecasts and stuff before hitting the water, and then I have quite an extensive pre-start routine. So I sail with a compass on my boats, which I don't think most of you guys would have. But so normally I'll go off the line and make sure I sail on both tacks, basically a full beat up to the windward mark, to get a really good idea of the wind shift. So seeing how big those wind shifts are, what kind of timing it is, and I can look at the numbers on the compass and write them down, so I know what I'm going to expect to be the lowest, or the most left shift, the most right shift, so that can help me pick the wind shifts during the race. And while you're going upwind, also warming up tacks, like tuning in with the speed, so trying to find the right grooves, learning what the conditions are for today. So what are the wave state, what's the waves like? If I could, trying to find another boat to line up with, so two-boat tuning, again, to set up the speed and the settings for the day. Obviously not a lot of settings in an Aero, and slightly similar to an Opti, probably more settings in the Opti, but yeah, mostly steering grooves, body movement, what's happening with the waves, and then the same downwind, so mostly trying to settle in the speed, learn the waves, is it different on one jibe to another, practice jibes, and then start line stuff as well, so bias, get a transit, something that I kind of learnt during the Worlds, which had a massive effect, was making sure I practice my accelerations and time on distance to the line. So do multiple accelerations off the boat end, off the middle, and off the pin. Obviously after getting a transit, to just make sure that I wasn't going to, you know, rely on winging it, that I knew that I could hit the line on time with speed every start of the day.
So let me ask a question. Raise your hand, all of those that do all that before regatta. No? Nobody? Aidan.
I'm just gonna.
Dimitri, you raise your hand. Who else does all that?
Not all of that, but like.
You
Most
do
of
a
it.
few.
What about you,
Parts of
Aidan?
that.
Maybe a bit of it. I don't go all the way to the mark though.
Yeah. So how long do you go out before the start?
Yeah, so normally about
Go out and out.
An hour? Okay. Is that you all go around an hour, or you do less than that?
I just go out when everyone else goes out.
About an hour.
An hour.
Or
Okay.
more.
Yeah.
So I think just to back up Sophie's. Well, I don't know if she meant this point, but she does a lot of fitness, as she mentioned, and she has a routine. She tries to get out early when she can. She doesn't just say, "Oh, I need to be fit for the 3 hours that she's out." She's fit for the prep work, the racing, and then the recovery work afterwards, I'm sure. So it's just awesome to chat to an athlete like Sophie who can paint such a clear picture. And again, this is one extreme, and we're talking to Sophie, who's the as I was saying, the female Victorian Sailor of the Year nominee this year. But it just shows the level that she was going to get to. Sophie, when I asked you about your data collection, you listed off as if you were reading a book. You've obviously done a lot of coaching, which breaks down different skills. Just switching tack, moving on to from a racing side. Do you remember
David,
when you started coaching? Oh, sorry,
David,
yeah, go on, David.
Yeah. Before we go into the coaching, just tell us, Sophie, you gave us a lot of details on the regatta, the technical side. Tell us a little bit on the social side. What's fun about, racing, doing regattas, and you did worlds, you did nationals, you did regionals. What's fun? What's coming out? Tell the kids why, this is such a good sport.
Yeah, I think especially when you start to get to travel, I think that's one of the best parts of the sport. And you're not just in the middle of a town, you're always on the coast, on the ocean, or on a lake. So it's a beautiful sport in that way. And yeah, getting to travel, and then obviously making new friends is a pretty big part. And again, when you get to travel, you get to make more new friends. And I think it's pretty awesome to have friends and know people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed, I think the Aero fleet was a bit different because it's kind of a new fleet, and there's not a lot of elite kind of sailors in that fleet. And so they were all really fun, and after racing everyone would stay and have a chat, have dinner together and that kind of thing, which was really lovely. I think sometimes in an Olympic fleet it's it's a bit more serious, but obviously, yeah, you still get to hang out, and it's more kind of after the regatta that you have more fun with friends and that kind of thing. But yeah.
I think that's a very important element. Sailing is nice on the water. There's a lot of efforts, and but I think that social element, and yeah, especially when you get to and again, you don't need to go far. It can be regional travel or New South Wales regatta. I think that's a very important element.
I think just to build on that, one cool thing about the first boss team that I worked with, there was 12 kids on it, and I think all 12 would all still be good friends to some degree anyway. They're Sophie's probably knows one member a little bit more. Stan, who's her boyfriend, was on the team as well. But yeah, it's a friendship for life. Even myself, I know Sophie's interview, when I go away on holidays with my friends, it's who I sail oppies with. We rent boats and we sail around. We rent a boat in Europe, and we sail around Greece or Croatia. We vary it up from different years, but it's friendships for life. So it's pretty cool. Even I'm sure people who are on this chat now will be friends in a few more years, we'll say. We might move, Sophie, onto your coaching side. Do you remember when you first started being a coach or an assistant instructor, or yeah, I think you did assistant instructor, then instructor, then a coach. Was that your path?
Yeah. So you can start assistant instructing quite young. So I think when you're 12, so I got my assistant instructor's qualification when I was 13. And just in the summers, I would help out at Mornington with some of the TACA's courses. And then became, I possibly did a little bit of coaching of the opties when I moved out of just into the 420, helped out with some of the opti coaching, events like the Legit Cup. And then 16, you're allowed to get your instructors. So I got my instructor qualification. And more recently, in the last few years, also got my coach qualification.
And in terms of your understanding of the sport, do you think teaching has helped with even your racing side?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to learn from coaching, gives you a bit of a different perspective. And I think it's a lot more relevant when you're sailing and coaching at the same time interchangeably, because you're learning things on the water and then you can contribute them to the sailors, or you're learning things off the sailors. Also, like learning things off other coaches, you can bounce off each other, and that kind of thing. So a lot to learn. And I think getting, like last summer was my first summer coaching at regattas as well, which obviously is also a lot to learn from watching the racing as a coach and not just sailing in it yourself.
Yeah. And do you think, have you come up with, what's the best way to put it? So it's your first year being a regatta coach, and I'm sure there's a lot of people around here who would like to become a coach, because it's a great way to get a bit of pocket money, learn a bit more yourself. Do you have any big lessons that you've learned in becoming a coach? Anything that stands out that's different to being a sailor? Say if you were to give feedback, would you say it all at once, or would you break it down differently, or sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here.
I don't know. Yeah, there's so many different kind of coaching techniques, and I have a bit of a different perspective as well because I'm doing teaching at university. So it all links in for me quite nicely. But yeah, there's different ways to take it, and depends on what kind of sailors you've got. So everyone kind of learns differently. And I guess, yeah, for you guys as sailors, that's something to take into consideration as well, knowing how you learn best. Is it breaking down a skill? Is it doing it on the land first? Is it writing it down on a piece of paper, or just practicing it? All different things like that.
And I've got to ask, I know that you had a notebook when you were in Oppies. Do you still have your notebook?
I do have a notebook. It's definitely not the same one.
Yeah.
And actually, after all this time in isolation, we've had Zoom after Zoom after Zoom. I've filled up a whole notebook in the past year.
Oh, really? There you go. And when you're actually, so if you're the athlete, you're taking down notes. Do you use the same notebook though to help teach when you're coaching, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially coming back, like if I'm going back to coach opties or 420s, I'll often look back into what were some of the notes at that point in that stage that were relevant for me. It'll probably be relevant for the sailors at that time in their journey as well.
Because I've still got my notebook from years and years, and I guess the point I'm making to this group is it might seem a bit taxing or a bit annoying to write down your notes, but if you do, it actually stands to you, because when you're actually going to be a coach and you're doing oppie work, you might know all this stuff right now, but yeah, try remember what you were thinking about 3 years ago. It's a bit more difficult, and you have to remember it all again. If you have your notebook, it triggers memories. It's a pretty healthy thing. So
who's got a notebook?
I might even raise you a question, Xavier, and say who uses a notebook rather than who has one. I think probably a few people might have them, but yeah. So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Who's taking notes now?
Oh.
Now they're young digital, kids, and so they're recording. That's better.
But yeah, there's a reason why we're interviewing people like Sophie. It's to learn her lessons and stuff that she's done very well, which is sorry. I think that this is part of her success, and I think it's worth doing. So that's why I'm making such a big deal of it. Sophie, before we go to questions from the group, so if anybody does have any questions, maybe you might want to think about them. What's next? Is the dream still Olympics? Is it 470 mixed crew Paris?
Yeah, so I had finally found a crew to travel to Europe for my first international 470 season this year, but obviously didn't get to go. But I'm still searching for a male crew to campaign for the 2024 Olympics in Paris in the 470 class.
Yep, and that's going to be in the 470 is what you're working towards. Is Jacko helping you out, or is Jacko helping you at all?
Yeah, he still helps a bit where he can, especially, well, at the moment the boat's in the backyard, and so I'm doing regular boat work, and Dad's always coming to help me with something. And when we're just training at Mornington, and we don't have the VIS coaches and stuff, sometimes Dad still comes out and has a look or takes some video or that kind of thing.
I can help you. You see?
What's that? Oh,
That's Xavier.
And if it's in Paris, I can help you with the language.
Tu parles français?
Yes.
Je trouve français.
Can you make me presenter, David?
Yep, you're a presenter now.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, because I wanted, as Sophie speaks, I wanted to show you some photos.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So that's where it all began. That's obviously Jacko.
Yes.
Sophie, you've changed slightly from then. Have you still got the same hat and life jacket?
No, unfortunately.
Unfortunately not. There you go. I was probably one of the first oppies in Australia, actually, I reckon.
Yeah, my first opti was 432.
Oh, James was sailing that for a while after you. Speedy Stingray.
Yeah, it was initially the Wave Whipper.
Initially the way. Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. And we have, Sophie, a few questions coming in. Are you going to the Aero Worlds in Garda 2021?
Well, Lake Garda is definitely on my bucket list of destinations to sail, and I have seen it. So obviously the 470 is my priority. So if I can be competing in the 470, that's the first thing. But in the back of my mind, I would love to get to the Aero Worlds on Garda as well. Maybe just last minute jump in the boat and just get that awesome opportunity to sail on Lake Garda.
Come out of retirement. Actually, I was there for that one. I think I would have been in that photo if
I think you're just off the side somewhere.
Yeah, that's in Sandy Bay. We've next question is, how do you stay focused under AP? Is there any tricks to the trade you have?
That's a tough one, and I think sometimes it's more not staying focused and allow yourself to just take a bit of a break and not be switched on that whole time, kind of draining your energy. So I think that's a skill that actually takes quite a long time to learn, that you've got to just relax for a bit, and then when it goes down or you see the wind starting to come on, switch back on. And I think in that, to do that, it's again having your process pre-start. So to get you back in the mood, so know that, okay, AP is going down, I'm going to quickly practice some tacks, go upwind, get the wind shifts, check the bias and the transit, and then you've kind of switched your mode from relaxing. So like you'll see me with the AP down, just having a snooze on the side of the boat. But as soon as you see the wind come in or AP goes down, straight into that pre-start routine.
And I guess just while I have the room's attention, if you're going to pick a place to relax, try do it near the race committee boat. Try do it near the committee boat so that if the wind only slightly comes up, you're still going to be able to make the start line. So if you're a little bit smart, you stay there, you'll be fine. Another question from Lottie, I think, is what's the coolest place?
Before the next question, can you tell us a bit about this brand new boat?
Yeah, I sent that photo. So that was my first 420. It cost $500. Found it in a paddock. As you can see, it's growing some mold. There was a bit of weeds growing in the bottom. So I think I just threw that in. I thought it was funny, and you don't have to start with a brand new boat in any class, and any old boat will do the job, just like this one did. And actually, my 470 at the moment, I found it almost in the exact same condition and got it for free. But I fixed it up and it works perfectly. So
couldn't buy the material, so
well done.
So from Lottie, I think, what's the coolest place you've sailed at?
So I did mention earlier that Fremantle is one of my favourite places to sail, which is in Western Australia. And I think another place, I haven't competed there, but I have been lucky enough to sail around the Whitsunday Islands, which I think brings in a different perspective, that sailing doesn't have to just be about racing, and there's so many opportunities for things like cruising as well, and sailing can take you to some pretty awesome places. So yeah, probably the Whitsunday Islands in Queensland was, or is, the favourite place that I've sailed.
Awesome. We got Dimitri going, what is your home yacht club? And there's a great picture of your home yacht club there with a friend beside you. Where is it for Dimitri?
My yacht club is Mornington.
Oh, very, very big Mornington sailor here. Very big Mornington. Future Commodore, I reckon, without a question. Thank you, Fiona. It's great to have you here, and we look forward to seeing Ben on the water. Of course, Liam would ask a non-sailing question, but what mountain were you skiing at?
I assume that means when I broke my back, I was skiing at Mount Buller.
I mean, it could have been the coolest place you sailed as well, depending on which way you look at it. And back in from Lottie, loving all the questions from Lottie, I think. Where's your favorite place to sail? So I think that was Frio. So we'll call it your second favorite place to sail. Where would that be?
Just mentioned the Whitsundays.
Yep. Third favorite place to sail. You went to Italy at one stage, didn't you?
Yes, it would probably be, yeah, I did. I sailed out of San Remo in Italy, and yeah, sailing on the Mediterranean was pretty awesome. Just a very, very blue seas.
But you haven't sailed in Ireland yet, have you?
No.
Yeah, that's probably why it's not number one. That's probably fair enough. And do you have any still friends from Greenfleet?
I think some lifelong friends from Greenfleet, family friends that I grew up sailing with, still friends with, and even people that came through the rest of the Opties. Even like Dave was saying, my boyfriend Stan was in the Opti squad. We met in Greenfleet. So yeah, lifelong friends. And
that's I'm guessing that's a legit trophy. It looks to be in that photo.
Yeah, that was probably one of the first regattas that I coached a group of Mornington sailors there. That's a very young looking James Jackson.
So I guess even, it is Jimbo there as well. I guess even a lesson for some people is, and definitely for people around the state squad or a bit more experienced, try coach a few Greenfleet kids, even a few Tackers kids, be an assistant coach, and you'll get a lot out of it. And even trying to explain something to someone else is a skill in itself. How fast is the aero? That's a pretty hard thing to clock, but these are Oppie kids, Sophie, so we have to answer these questions.
Well, I sailed in the smallest type of aero rig because I'm not very big, but there's 3 sizes, and the aero hull is 35 kilos, so it's super lightweight. The mast and boom are made out of carbon, so it's quite fast for a dinghy. And on a reach in above 20 knots, super fast. I remember one of the first few weeks in the aero, got up to 30 knots off Brighton, big waves, and I was like, I think I'm going faster than the 470 with the spinnaker up. Yeah,
Really?
they get up. Oh, I don't know if it probably wasn't, but I was shocked at how fast they do get up on a reach. I'd say upwind and downwind, they're not that fast compared, like same as a laser radial, but on a reach they really get going.
So will they be faster on a radial on a reach?
Yeah.
Cool. So just the less weight does kick in then. I think I can are you a crew or a skipper in 470?
I'm a skipper. I'm not even 160 centimeters tall, so no chance of being a crew.
So I know I didn't know, I was polite. I guess that's the way you can do it. We got a question from Lottie again. Why did you choose the 420 over 29er? And Dimitri, it's not better or self-explanatory. It's a different boat before you have that cheek. But why did you choose the 420?
I think the 420 is a bit more of an all-rounded boat. And as I said, some of the skills that I got to learn in the 420 about sails and rigs and different controls and stuff, you can really learn like all the basic elements of rigs and sail shape and stuff in a 420 that you can take into any boat. So I think definitely that, and then also that it's a bit more manageable coming out of an opti into a double-handed boat. 420 is a lot more stable, still heaps of fun. It's got the spinnaker, the trapeze, it's a planing boat, but for me I just thought the 29er, everyone seemed to spend a lot of time under the water or in the water before they kind of get going onto a race course. So the 420s, I guess for me, I just thought it was a bit of an easier transition, but still a lot of fun and lots to learn.
Yeah. I think even with because the boat is naturally not as wobbly as a 29er, you need to have a certain level of experience. So if you're a Green Fleet 29er sailor, unfortunately that means you don't get to sail on your knees, and the boat will be okay if you let out the main sheet. It doesn't quite work that way, but both are great boats. I probably look at it for what it's worth as the 420s are, and this is probably going to go over a lot of people's heads, but the 420s are like having a manual car, and the 29ers is an automatic. And both equally good. Both will get you around good competition, good places, but just a little bit different. We have another one from Liam. Oh, well done, Liam. You asked a sailing question. I'm impressed, mate. What's the next boat? I know you've got your goal of the Olympics, but do you have any other desires? Is it a keel boat? Is it something else post Olympics?
I haven't really thought that far ahead. Definitely at the moment, just thinking about the 470. And the Olympics is a long journey, so I expect to be sailing a 470 for quite some time. But I've also been enjoying learning in keel boats as well, and different roles on the boat. So obviously in a dinghy, I'm a skipper, but I've enjoyed learning how to do the dig trim on a keel boat. The bow and that kind of thing. So keel boat sailing as well.
I know that you do couple of keelboat races on your dad's boat or in other boats in Mornington. Is that like a really good platform just to take out mates who are non-sailors and actually show them the ropes, as it were?
Yeah, definitely. I've taken out heaps of my friends just to show them kind of a bit what sailing's like.
Yeah, awesome. So we've got another few questions. We might limit it for these questions after this, just because we've been going on a while, and we really appreciate your time, Sophie. But which boat do you want to do in the Olympics? I'm guessing that's the 470, maybe. From Lottie, I think, would you want to sail the 49er FX? Did that cross your mind at all?
Yeah, I definitely considered the FX when I transitioned out of 420s. But obviously having the 420 background, the transition into a 470 was going to be a lot smoother for me. And the skill set that I already had was more suited to a 470. And again, like going into the skiff, so just like going from an Opti to a 29er, going from a 420 to an FX is a massive step. And you spend, you know, your first year doing a lot of capsizing and swimming. So for me, I was like, I just want to get into it and be training properly straight away and not spending the first winter in the water the whole time.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. What's your favorite position on keel boats? Is it on the big stick? Is it on main sheet? Is it doing kite work? Bow?
Oh, I don't know. Obviously I like steering, but I don't know. I've enjoyed getting to learn all the different positions, and I'm still learning them as well. So I don't know.
Did your dad tell me when you did some club racing that at every mark you swap around position? Did I hear that you do that for a race, or did I hear that wrong?
Yeah, I think that's quite common. On our casual Thursday night races at Mornington, we all swap positions all the time. So I might steer for a leg and then end up doing the jib and then the main, and everyone gets a different go, which is, yeah, it's really cool.
And they say a bit of varieties.
Yeah.
Spice of life. When was the last time you sailed an Oppie? Did it feel slow? I reckon you've definitely done some Oppie demos. Have you jumped into it?
I do a lot of Opti demos in the Tackers boats all the time. And I've also demonstrated some things in the actual Opti coaching recently as well. It just seems very small and underpowered.
It does when I suppose you're used to flying on a reach and an arrow. Did you play any other sports? I think, did you do hockey? I got that right.
I was a netballer.
Oh,
while
netball. Sorry.
Still at school.
Yep, I remember that. Yep, at work. Sorry. And last question before we wrap it up: what are your boat names? Oh, actually, your 420 was pretty funny. This is annoying me. It has a circle in it. Oh, lols.
It was lol. Laugh out
Yeah.
loud, as Dave said. He nicknamed me Giggles, so there was always a lot of laughing on our boat. So lol was the 420 name. My Opti was Wave Whipper, and one of my 470s is called Summer, and the other one is Katrina, which came with the boat. And the story behind it is that boat was one of Malcolm Page and Nathan Wilmot's, and they named all their boats after characters that Nicole Kidman played in movies. So in one movie, she was Katrina.
So big fans of her there, which is pretty cool. And you've I know that we've been going back just to your current sailing, but you've been doing a bit of work with Malcolm. I know that we've been catching up with rules. What's it like having Malcolm on board? It must be pretty awesome having that experience.
I guess it was perfect for me, obviously being in the 470, and I'm currently the only 470 sailor in Victoria. So having Mel come on board, I've been very lucky to get some of his attention, and Carrie Smith as well. So we're spoilt for talent at the moment with our coaches, and a brief period in the middle of lockdown, I got to get up to Sydney and actually sail with Mel. So he crewed for me in the 470, which is just absolutely amazing. And in 3 days, I've learned so much. So it's absolutely amazing having all that experience, and Australia's most successful Olympian coaching me at the moment.
Not too bad.
David and Sophie, I'm going to have to go. Before I go, can I ask everybody to put their cameras on and give me a big smile, and then because I need to go to another meeting.
That's all good, of course.
Where are you, Riley? We're missing you.
Come on, Riley, mate.
Lee, we need to see you.
Is it my camera?
Heath's camera doesn't work. Lee is eating. Sorry to disturb your dinner, Lee. That's all good.
All right, everybody smiling. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And I will, thank you very much, Sophie. and I will let you guys finish. I need to go.
Awesome. Thanks, Xavier. We'll see you next time.
See you, Xavier.
Bye.
Guys, I think we're going to wrap it up.